This is your notes for 6.4, which is solving radical equations. So first off, we have our steps for solving radical equations. First thing we want to do is isolate the radical on one side of the equation if necessary. Then we're going to raise each side to the same exponent to eliminate the radical and obtain a linear, quadratic, or other polynomial equation. And then we're going to solve the resulting equation using techniques you've learned in previous chapters, and we have to make sure that we check our solution. So with A, we have solve 2 root x plus 1 equals 4. So we want to get the radical by itself. I'm going to do that by dividing both sides by 2, and I get the root of x plus 1 equals, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Then I'm going to raise each side to the same exponent. So the way I can undo a square root is to square both sides. So that gives me x plus 1 is equal to 2 squared, which is 4. Subtract 1, x equals 3. I always want to make sure that I plug that back in to check. So 2 root of 3 plus 1 equals 4. 3 plus 1 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4, so that works. The reason that we're having to check is because with square root equations, remember that we can have extraneous solutions. So extraneous solutions are whenever you've done all the algebra steps right, but when you plug it back in, it doesn't work because of the domain, the possible x values that we can look at with a radical. B, the cube root of 2x minus 9 minus 1 equals 2. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I get the cube root of 2x minus 9 equals 2 plus 1 is 3. Then I'm going to cube both sides. So 2x minus 9 equals 3 cubed. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. Then I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Get 2x is equal to 36. Divide by 2, x is 18. So when I plug that in to check, 2 times 18 minus 9 minus 1 outside equals 2. 2 times 18 is 36. 36 minus 9 is 27. The cube root of 27 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. That works. In a hurricane, the mean sustained wind velocity in meters per second can be modeled by this function, where P is the air pressure in millibars at the center of the hurricane. Estimate the air pressure at the center of the hurricane when the mean sustained wind velocity is 54.5. So this 54.5 is right here, your wind velocity. So 54.5 equals 6.3 root of 1013 minus P. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6.3 because I'm getting my radical by itself. And I get about 8.65. In my equation, or in my question, they're only going to one decimal place, so whenever I'm working, I'm going to go to 2 decimal places so I can round later to 1 decimal place. So 8.65 is equal to the square root of 1013 minus P. Then I need to square both sides. So that gives me 74.84 is equal to 1013 minus P. I'm going to subtract 1013. And so I have negative 938.16 is equal to negative P. So positive P would equal 938 and I have 1 decimal place in my problem, so I'm rounding to 1 decimal place here, 938.2. What if? Estimate the air pressure at the center of the hurricane when the sustained wind velocity is 48.3 meters per second. So here we're doing the same problem but with 48.3 as our y value. So again, dividing by 6.3. So I've got 48.3 divided by 6.3. And that is 7.67 is equal to the square root of 1013 minus P. Then I'm going to square both sides. I get 58.78 is equal to 1013 minus p. I'm going to subtract 1013 from both sides. I want my answer, minus 1013. So I get negative 954.22 is equal to negative p. So positive p is 954.22. Sometimes you'll have a radical on one side. Whenever you isolate your radical, you'll have another function over here. So we're still going to square both sides, but whenever you square this left side, you may want to put it in parentheses first, because this is really x plus 1 times x plus 1 equals 2. And over here, your square and your square root cancel out, and you get 7x plus 15. So x times x is x squared, x times 1 is x, 1 times x is x, 1 times 1 is 1, equals 7x plus 15. So x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 7x plus 15. Now anytime you have a squared term, a quadratic, you're going to want to get everything on one side and see if you can factor it. So I'm going to subtract 7x and subtract 15. So that gives me x squared minus 5x minus 14 is equal to 0. Now I'm looking for my numbers that multiply to give me negative 14 and add to give me negative 5. So that's going to be a negative 7 and a positive 2. So these factors would be x minus 7 and x plus 2 equals 0. Once you get a quadratic down to factors, you can set the factors equal to 0 and solve. So x minus 7 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. So x is going to be 7 and x is going to be negative 2. Now we do have to check our answers. Okay, so checking our answers, 7 plus 1 is 8 equals 7 is 49. Plus 15 is 64, and the square root of 64 is 8. So that first one checks out. Plugging in negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. Plus 15 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. Now negative 1 is not equal to 1, so that means that this will not be a solution, that it is extraneous. Our next equation, we've got square root of x plus 2 plus 1 is equal to the square root of 3 minus x. Now whenever you have this, you have radicals on both sides, but you've got this kind of extra number right here, what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to square both sides, and you're going to have to treat this like you just did this side right there. So we're going to have the square root of x plus 2 plus 1 times the square root of x plus 2 plus 1. Equals 3 minus x. So any number times itself is just that number, so that's going to give me x plus 2. Square root of x plus 2 times 1 is a square root of x plus 2. 1 times the square root of x plus 2 is the square root of x plus 2. And 1 times 1 is 1. So then I'm going to combine my like terms, so I have an x, 2 and 1 is 3. Plus, and I have two of these terms, so I have 2 square root of x plus 2 equals 3 minus x. So now I can isolate that radical. Before, if I'd moved this one over, then it would have just been on the other side. I would have still had to have done all these same steps. So I'm going to subtract x and subtract 3. So I have 2 root of x plus 2 is equal to, my 3's are going to cancel, and negative x minus x is negative 2x. I'm going to divide by 2, and I get the root of x plus 2 is equal to a negative x. Now I can square both sides, and I get x plus 2 is equal to, and negative x times itself is x squared. Now I want to move everything to one side, so I'm going to subtract x and subtract 2. So that gives me 0 is equal to x squared minus x minus 2. So again, I have a quadratic, so I'm looking, will it factor? Are there numbers that multiply to give me negative 2 and add to give me negative 1? And that's going to be a 2 and a negative 1. or sorry, a negative 2 and a positive 1. So 0 is equal to x minus 2 and x plus 1. So x minus 2 is equal to 0 when x is 2, and x plus 1 is equal to 0 when x is negative 1. Plug them back in to check. 2 plus 2 is 4, the square root of 4 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1, the square root of 1 is 1, so that will not work. So this is extraneous. So I wouldn't type it in my computer because that's not an answer. Negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1 plus 1 is 2. 3 minus a negative 1. Well, minus a negative becomes positive. 3 plus 1 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So 2 is extraneous. Negative 1 is an answer. 2x to the 3/4 plus 2 equals 10. Okay, so you'll also see rational exponents, fractional exponents. You're going to solve these the same way that you've been solving them. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. So 2x to the 3/4 is equal to 10 minus 2 is 8. And I'm going to raise this to the reciprocal power. So the reciprocal of 3 over 4 is 4 over 3. So I'll have 2x is equal to 8 to the 4/3. Now, we learned earlier that this is the root, and this would be the power. So this would be the cubed root of 8 to the 4th power. So 2x is equal to, well, the cubed root of 8 is 2, and 2 to the 4th, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. To find x, I'm going to divide this by 2, and x is 16 divided by 2, which is 8. You can plug it back into check. 8 times 2 is 16. 4th root of 16 is 2. 2 cubed is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. X plus 30 to the 1/2 equals x. So I'm going to raise those to the reciprocal. The reciprocal right here is 2. So I'm going to have x plus 30 is equal to x squared. I've got another quadratic, so I'm going to get everything on one side. So I get 0 is equal to x squared minus x minus 30. My numbers that multiply to give me negative 30 and add to give me negative 1 are a negative 6 and a positive 5. So 0 is equal to x minus 6, x plus 5. Set my factors equal to 0. So x is 6 and x is negative 5. Whenever I plug those in, 6 plus 30 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6. That works. Negative 5 plus 30 is 25. The square root of 25 is 5, but right here I have a negative 5, so that one is extraneous. Alright, inequalities, you're going to solve them the same way. The only thing you have to remember about inequalities is that you flip your inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative number. So divide both sides by 3. I get root x minus 1 is less than or equal to 4. Square both sides. X minus 1 is less than or equal to 16. Add 1. X is less than or equal to 17. 17 minus 1 is 16. Root 16 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Right here, I'm going to add 3 first. So I get 2 root x is greater than or equal to 6. Divide by 2. Root x is greater than or equal to 3. Square both sides. X is greater than or equal to 9. Root of 9 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. That works. Divide both sides by 4. Cube root of x plus 1 is less than 2. Cube both sides. X plus 1 is less than 8. Subtract 1. X is less than 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. Cubed root of 8 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. Make sure that you write your summary. Remember on Friday that you're bringing in 4 summaries. You're bringing in 4 sets of notes because I'm going to grade 4 of your summaries. So start collecting those summaries to bring into class.